What's good, everyone? GameXA here, and I hope y'all are having a wonderful day. So, today we are going to read some of the major headlines concerning Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition attempt that occurred within the past week or so. And then I'll give my opinion and insight into why certain things are happening. So, let's start with the biggest news that occurred recently. The FTC files a lawsuit to block Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition. And we're going to read from an article in gamesindustry.biz. The headline is FTC files lawsuit to block Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition. US regulators say it seeks to stop Microsoft from using ownership of leading publisher to harm competition and consumers. The Federal Trade Commission has filed a legal complaint in an attempt to block Microsoft's proposed $68.7 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The commission says the deal, if approved, enables Microsoft to suppress competitors to its Xbox gaming console and its rapidly growing subscription content and cloud gaming business. The FTC announced today that the vote was 3-1 in favor of issuing the complaint. Chief among the FTC's reasons for attempting to block the deal was Microsoft's history of acquiring and using valuable gaming content to suppress competition from rival consoles. And they mentioned the ZeniMax Media Bethesda deal. They're quoted here stating, Microsoft has already shown it can and will withhold content from its gaming rivals, said Holly Vidova, director of the FTC's Bureau of Competition. And they go on, today we seek to stop Microsoft from gaining control over a leading independent game studio and using it to harm competition in multiple dynamic and fast-growing gaming markets. And before we get into my thoughts on this, we're going to read an update here from Microsoft President Brad Smith and Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick. Each have issued a statement in response to the FTC's lawsuit. So Smith commented on the news via Twitter saying, we continue to believe that our deal to acquire Activision Blizzard will expand competition and create more opportunities for gamers and game developers. We have been committed since day one to addressing competition concerns, including by offering earlier this week proposed concessions to the FTC. While we believe in giving peace a chance, we have complete confidence in our case and welcome the opportunity to present it in court. Meanwhile, Kotick issued a letter to all Activision Blizzard employees, which was also shared via the publisher's investor relations site. An excerpt from the letter reads, the competitive landscape is shifting, and simply put, a combined Microsoft and Activision Blizzard King will be good for players, good for employees, good for competition, and good for the industry. Our players want choice, and this gives them exactly that. So there's a lot to dive into here, but from the FTC side of things, it's important to note, like the article mentions, this is just the first step and does not equal fully committing to blocking the deal entirely, but from how I understand it, it's more like a negotiation tool or tactic to attempt to get Microsoft to offer concessions that address the FTC's concern and not just whatever Microsoft has already prepared. Another key point the FTC makes in its filings is they think if the acquisition goes through as it is, it could harm multiple gaming markets, not just console sales, not just a single gaming market, but multiple, meaning they're likely to view Game Pass and any mobile marketplace as separate from the traditional game market where Sony is the leader currently. So not surprising, but it's not good news for Microsoft regardless. And then in the response, Microsoft's president Brad Smith tweets addressing the FTC's action. He states, the deal will expand competition, and Bobby Kotick from the Activision Blizzard side of things says very much the same thing, but neither of them offer even a glimpse or an idea as to what the future might look like that they mention. If Microsoft buys their way to owning the majority of the gaming market by making the majority of Activision Blizzard games exclusive in some aspect, does this technically increase competition? Yes, in a sense, but is this better for anyone besides Microsoft? No. And I don't see how it offers more choice to gamers when you're limiting access to the product that's been available already as far-reaching as it can be. The FTC also calls out Microsoft's misleading language during the process of acquiring ZeniMax, the owners of Bethesda, stating Microsoft made assurances to the European Union Trade Commission about not having incentives to make Bethesda games exclusive, but then rapidly changed their mind once the deal went through. Now, this assertion has made headlines in of itself, so we'll pull up a different article. This one's still from gamesindustry.biz, but this is titled, Did Microsoft break its promise to the European Union about Bethesda exclusives? Reports are spreading that the European Union has stepped in to defend Microsoft against the Federal Trade Commission's lawsuit to block the proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The crux of the argument is that the EU seemingly disagrees with the implication that Microsoft broke its promise about making Starfield and other Bethesda games exclusive while pushing for its acquisition of ZeniMax Media. And that's kind of the writer's opinion or view of things, his personal view of things. But let's get into what the FTC actually said here. Here is the relevant part of the FTC statement. Microsoft decided to make several of Bethesda's titles, including Starfield and Redfall, Microsoft exclusives, despite assurances it gave to the European antitrust authorities that it has no incentive to withhold games from rival consoles. And then the EU response to that was, the Commission cleared the Microsoft ZeniMax transaction unconditionally, as it concluded that the transaction would not raise competition concerns. They continued, Microsoft did not offer any commitments to the Commission, and added that conclusion did not rely on anything Microsoft said about future ZeniMax releases, meaning they didn't sign anything legally binding, essentially, and the EU didn't require anything like that. The article continues, so what does this mean? Putting it as simply as possible, Microsoft does not appear to have broken any promises. They mean legally binding promises, what they should say. Also worth noting is that because they continue here in a couple of paragraphs down, also it's worth noting that the FTC statement is also not inaccurate. Microsoft did give assurances to the EU that it had no incentive to make these games exclusive, and then it did announce that they would be exclusive to Xbox and PC. So I noticed this article and many others from self-proclaimed game journalists trying to make it sound as if the European Union is defending Microsoft when in reality they're just saying that they were not fooled by Microsoft and they do not need to take legal action against Microsoft at the moment. Because while the article admits Microsoft did provide statements indicating that they would not make Bethesda games exclusive, they did not sign anything legally binding, as I said before, to the European Union about exclusives. If they did and then broke the agreement, the European Union would be obligated to sue Microsoft, I believe, and potentially break up the merger. So more than defending Microsoft, the EU is covering its own bases, so to speak. And the statement from the FTC and the EU response do not contradict each other, and certainly do not help Microsoft's case. Also, this does not take into account all the public statements that Phil Spencer made, and the Microsoft president also commented on this. But they made a bunch of comments alluding to keeping Bethesda games on rival marketplaces, which they did not end up doing. But speaking of Microsoft stating they'll keep games on rival marketplaces, there have been reports, mostly speculation I think, stating Microsoft is willing to put Call of Duty in PlayStation Plus. So we're going to pull from another article here from the gamesindustry.biz. This one states, report, Microsoft is willing to put Call of Duty in PlayStation Plus. The article continues, Microsoft has offered Sony the right to include Call of Duty within its PlayStation Plus subscription service, Bloomberg reports. And I would like to pull up the article, but it is paywall blocked. So we just have to take their word for it. But this is in addition to the deal that would guarantee Call of Duty comes to PlayStation, Nintendo, and Steam platforms for at least 10 years. And I think that's all the relevant information from the article. As I mentioned before, I'd like to read the Bloomberg report more, but it is pay gated, so we just have to kind of take this at face value. So assuming it's true, I can already see issues with the deal even when it's presented in the best way possible. 1, it does not mention keeping everything content equal. 2, it's only for 10 years. Now that sounds like a long time, but I would remind people Call of Duty has been topping sales charts for well over a decade now. So while a lot can change and has changed in the past 10 years, Call of Duty being the top selling FPS, first person shooter, is not one of them. And I think the biggest reason Microsoft is being so public about trying to court deals with Nintendo, Steam, and PlayStation is because they don't want legal bodies like the FTC or the European Union to require a deal that places more broad limitations on them, extending to things like a mobile gaming marketplace such as Apple's mobile store or the Google Play Store, which Microsoft has stated they see as competitors and want to get into that space. Microsoft would much prefer to make small concessions to the companies that do not have a mobile marketplace at the moment, so they can attempt to get their own service going with incentives like Call of Duty Mobile, and all of King's mobile library of games. Also, I doubt breaking the contract that they create between Sony or Nintendo would be anywhere near as severe as breaking a contract between the FTC, especially when they're drawing up the rules of the contract. They probably know all the loopholes that they can exercise to work around certain things if they really wanted to. But if the FTC has them sign specific consent decrees or legally binding agreements, they won't have nearly the freedom that they would want. And that's why you hear reports Microsoft is offering their concessions while the FTC is still moving ahead with this complaint and trying to get Microsoft to comply with the FTC concessions because they are separate. We still have a long way to go for this to all get sorted out though, but these are just the major relevant headlines I wanted to discuss today. But what do you feel about the points made here, both in the article and in the video? I would really love to hear what y'all have to say. And also, if there's anything that you think I missed or points I overlooked or haven't considered, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. But most of all, thanks for watching GameXfinity.